be up and running for those 7 people.
We're good. Go ahead. Roll it.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. So if you have Ms. Hazen, Ms. Garcia, and Mr. Lord, you're in the right place. If you don't, you're not. So you can go to the guidance office and find out where to go. Okay, welcome to senior meeting, senior college and career meeting. We're ready for the next slide whenever you are. Awesome. That's us. Okay, we're ready to go on. Okay, so a lot of you have started the process. If you haven't, that's perfectly fine. But if you have, there's really important information that we need to give all of you, actually, depending on where you are in the process. It's really important that you see your guidance counselor so that we can help you figure out your path and get started or continue on with what you've already started on your own. So please, if you haven't made an appointment with us, please do so we can touch base and see where you're at individually. Emails are great, but they're not as helpful, we don't find, as the face-to-face. Okay, so please do that at some point soon. So that's really what I'm saying in this slide. See us. Last year we had junior conferences, and at those meetings we asked you guys to fill out your brag sheets, parent brag sheets, and a college worksheet. If for whatever reason you didn't come to a junior conference or have those meetings with us, we really need your those forms to be filled out and returned to us, because each of us are writing your letters of recommendation along with your teachers. So the more you can tell us about yourselves that we don't know, any activities that have been important, anything that you'd be remiss if it wasn't included in our letter. We really need that information. So any updated info, even if you filled it out last spring and you've done some interesting things over the summer, let us know. That could be part of our meeting when you make an appointment. But it's important that you give us the information you want us to have so we can highlight those kinds of things in your letter of recommendation. Okay? Anything to add?
No, but I think that part about updating us with anything that's important, keep in mind that even if we had a junior conference last year, we would have met sometime in the spring. And so between now and then, you might have done something cool in the summer, something interesting, something you might want to add. Just keep in mind that anything we don't, we try to know as much as we can about you guys, but, we don't know everything that you guys are doing. So you guys need to let us know so that we can talk you up in our letter and make sure that everything is as positive and recent and, with all the best attributes that you guys can possibly bring as possible. So just keep us updated and informed as to what's going on so that we can make sure that we couch you guys in the best possible light.
Okay, so the next part of this are the parts of the application, and I think we explained this pretty thoroughly last night for your parents, but basically your responsibility as a student is to fill out and send your applications at home and your test scores if you're sending test scores to colleges. We in guidance will send your transcript, our letters of recommendation, and the school profile, and your teachers will send their letters. So 3 different parts. You're like a juggler and you are trying to keep these balls in the air and get them all sent to the admissions offices before deadline. Not on deadline, before deadline. So if you have a November 1st deadline, you should be working to get all 3 parts sent to the colleges by mid-October. So you still have time. It's not, anything to stress about, but you should be aware that you send your applications at home and your test scores. We send your guidance materials and teachers send their letters, separate and apart from us. So there's a school part and a home part, and it all needs to be delivered to the admissions offices before deadlines.
So just before we go on to this, just as far as letters of recommendation, because a lot of you guys are really at that point right now. Most of you likely have already had at least a verbal conversation with the teacher, probably last spring when it came to writing a letter for you, or a couple of teachers to write letters for you. So there's, so we'll talk about this again, but it's important now. What we're going to need to do is electronically invite them to send those letters. And I guess we're going to talk about that process in a little bit, but that's going to be the next thing. However, if you're a student who has not talked to teachers yet about writing a letter, or you still need to do that, you're still in that phase, that's okay, but you've got to do it now. I mean, you can't wait any longer than now to start talking to a teacher for the first time about writing a letter for you. So if you're in that position, you need to get on that, which I know is not always the easiest thing to do, to talk to teachers about these kinds of things. So if you're nervous about it, or you're struggling with like what to say, come down and talk to us. We can give you some help as far as how to approach a teacher about a letter of recommendation. It's really not, as scary as it can feel, or, it's sitting here thinking about it, but just want to mention that again.
Most of you will be filling out the Common Application. Over 1,000 colleges accept this one application, and that's the link. And we're going to have this whole presentation on the Schreiber website and on YouTube, as we've mentioned. But that's how you get on. You have to set up an account and you start filling it out. It's not a hard application, but it is a little time consuming. So each of the colleges that accept the Common Application have their own part. It's called a supplement. When you see the Common Application, you'll see you'll list the schools on the left-hand side of the Common App. Raise your hand if you're already at that point, where you see the colleges on the Common App on the left-hand side. Okay, there'll be something that says questions. Those are individual college-specific questions that you need to fill out. Those are called the supplemental essays. They range anywhere from 250 words to 500 words, and it's another opportunity to demonstrate your interest and to show your knowledge of the colleges. Those are just as important as the actual main Common App essay, which is 650 words. There are other applications which we'll go into, but that's the main one. So if you know you're applying to multiple schools, you need to set up a Common Application account and start filling it out. And again, you're not alone. We're here to assist. Let us know if you come into any issues and questions with filling out the Common App.
And keep in mind, those supplements may have another piece of writing, but they may not, and it may be very quick. Sometimes they just have a few simple questions, and it may just be a couple of clicks of a few boxes to complete the question/supplement for that school. And then other schools might have 3 different little mini questions that they want to ask you. So it depends. So you have to go into each one though and make sure that even if it's clicking a couple of boxes, that you click those boxes or you won't be able to submit. The nice thing about the Common Application, as most of you I think know by now, is when you finish a part and it's satisfactorily completed so that enough to send the application, you're going to get a green check mark next to that section to know that you completed it to the satisfaction of that part being good enough to send in. Obviously, you need to get all the check marks for all the parts in order to send in the whole application, but you can even know within the sub-parts that you're filling out, I've completed this enough to at least, submit it for that portion.
A good rule of thumb is anytime you see an asterisk, it's a mandated field you have to fill out. Anything else is optional. So when you see an asterisk on the Common App, you must fill it out or you won't get that green check. Okay, COVID-19. This is an optional essay. Usually when we say optional, we kind of mean it's required, but really not in this case. Unless you have something specific that you want to share to the admissions committee about your experience with COVID-19. Not just that we were remote for a while. Something specific to your friends, your family, your life, that you think would be incomplete if you did not mention as part of your application. So use that truly as an optional essay. If you feel like you have something to add, please do. But if not, and hopefully you don't, but if you do, then use that spot to fill that out.
Don't be afraid to skip the COVID question if you really have nothing to add. I mean, if it's just, you're going to say that there was COVID and everybody was remote and I had to learn online. That's not, I wouldn't even bother with that because that's true for everybody. It doesn't really distinguish your application from anything else. One of the benchmarks, I think that's a good thing to think about while you're doing an application is think about whether what I'm putting into this section of the application is helping them to admit me to the school. That's the purpose. The purpose of the application is to get you admitted to the school. So if you're putting something in there that doesn't really move the needle towards your getting in, then don't put it in because everything is an opportunity cost for other time that would be spent on something that might be actually moving a needle for you. So you don't want to have an admissions person spending time reading about your assessment of being home, learning remotely, again, sort of similarly to everybody else, when they could be learning about, something interesting that you did in the summer or an activity that you've been a part of, because they don't really spend that much time on your application. And so you really want to make sure that you're giving them exactly what you think is going to be the most impactful things towards you specifically.
Okay. More and more colleges are using what's called the SRAR. Raise your hand if you're familiar. Nice amount. Okay. So this is sort of a self-reporting part of the application where they want you to go through your transcript and note your grades. And if it was honors and regents and things like that. So couple ways to access this SRAR. One way is after you apply, you will get an email that you should look at. From now on, until you're done applying, read your email. So many students forget their emails, and then they never get to things like this. Your application will be incomplete until you fill out this self-reporting SRAR. So a lot of times you will see it in your email. They'll give you a link, and that's part of their college process. Sometimes you can find it on the Common Application, which is a new update, but there are certain colleges that require this, and you will know when you're filling out the Common Application or when you get that email that that's part of the process. So be aware that any college emails can be very important. Also, after you submit an application, you will get an email saying, thank you, we've gotten your application, and here's a link to the portal. So you can log on and see what your status is. That's really important. It tells you if they're missing test scores, if they're missing a recommendation, if they're missing your application, if they're missing SRAR. So use that information to work on your applications if they're not complete already. But this is sort of a new up-and-coming thing, and many colleges are using it, so pay attention.
Yeah, basically all they're telling you to do is they want you to rewrite your transcript for them on this program. That's what's going to happen. So you're going to need to know every class that you took in high school since 9th grade, so you need a copy of your transcript, and then you have to reproduce all of the grades. And now I know that it may be a little bit of a challenge right now because with looking at grades and things back on our new student information system, I know it's been a little bit challenging. So we can produce a transcript for you if you need one in order to fill out an SRAR. But that's basically what it is. And it's good to do as soon as you can because, I'm assuming that the reason they're asking for this is because they want to review your application. Of course, they're going to need the official one at some point in order to verify what you've written, but if you do the SRAR quicker, sooner than later for the school, then it's likely that they're going to review your application that much faster. The quicker they review your application, the better off you are.
Okay, so Naviance is a critical part of this college application process, and if you haven't matched Common App to Naviance yet, and you're unsure about how to do it, please see us. The instructions are on the website, but sometimes it's easier just to come on in and we will help you match the two accounts. Mr. Lord explains this very nicely, where the Naviance account is like your master list. Every college you plan on applying to must be on your Naviance account. Common Application is the application that you send to colleges. We don't send your applications through Naviance. We send your transcript, your guidance recommendation letter, and the school profile. So if the college that you're applying to is not on your Naviance account, we have nowhere to send your guidance materials. Your Common Application over here is the application where you do your essays and your activities and you send that at home. Okay, so they have to be linked because it's all electronic and everything goes through those systems.
Okay, so a couple of notes to add also. So, Common App is the only thing that links with Naviance. So nothing, you don't have to link anything else. So that sometimes that question will come up. It's only Common Application that links to Naviance. But like Ms. Hazen said, any schools you're applying to have to be on your Naviance list. And not every school you apply to may be a Common App school. That's fine, just as long as every school, for example, CUNY, if you're applying to CUNY schools, City University of New York schools, they're not, I think they're not all on the Common App, so you would use a CUNY app to apply there. Again, you would still list it on Naviance. You may be applying to schools in California. A lot of the California schools don't use the Common App, they have their own California application system. You should apply that way, that's the only way to apply, in fact. You still have to list it on your Naviance account. Every school you're applying to is on your Naviance account. That's your, like Ms. Hazen said, that's your master list. And that's actually good. Every time you put a school in there, and then you click what date you plan on applying by, say your early action on that school, it'll give you the date that the early action application is due right next to it. So it's a good way of also staying organized with your dates, and you know when everything has to be done.
Okay, so one of the things about Naviance is that you're not able to remove colleges, which is fine. We remove colleges. So if you decide you're not applying somewhere, just send us an email or pop in and say, please remove these 3 schools. I've decided not to apply. You can remove your colleges on Common App, but not on Naviance. So rule of thumb there, just let us know. You can leave them on there, that's fine too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but
if you want to clean up
if
your...
you want to clean it up, which I like, just let me know. That's fine. Oh, also, no, I wanted to say that if a college is offering you a free application to use their application, which happens often, like if you go visit and then they say, hey, fill this out, it's free, and you can save $75, then absolutely use their institutional application, but it still has to go on Naviance. Yes. Okay, NCAA, if you plan on playing D1 or D2, you must fill out the clearinghouse paperwork, and that is the website. If it's D3, you do not have to file through clearinghouse, but if it's D1, D2, that is an additional part of your college application process. Okay. So these are the other applications. Coalition, I haven't used it in a couple of years, don't worry about it. Individual schools we just mentioned, CUNY, some are on the Common App, some are not. SUNY has their own application as well, but I'm pretty sure 95% of the SUNY schools are on the Common App. And again, because we're linked with Naviance, we prefer you use the Common Application. Even though you have a choice, please use the Common Application.
Yeah, so for SUNY, just for SUNYs, they usually use the Common App and the SUNY app. Just use the Common Application for the SUNYs. It's much easier for you, for us, and for everybody who does the system. So most everybody in here is probably applying to at least one SUNY, so I think it's important to note, don't do a separate SUNY application. Just use the Common App.
Okay, back to teacher recommendations. This is important. And when we talk about questions that you may have about a certain college, your best source of information is the college website themselves, because they have the most updated, accurate information about how to apply and what they're looking for. Some colleges don't want any letters of rec. Some only want 1, and we give them 2 because we write for all of you. Some want 2 academic. The more competitive the college, typically the second letter will be required. So in our junior conferences last year, we recommended that you seek 2 teachers to write for you. Some may only require 1, like I said, and I think nowadays less is more. So if they want 1, you give them 1. If you got 2 letters and you really think that could be impactful, again, it's how do you think you want your applications to read? And if that second teacher can say something different than the first one, then absolutely you may use that second teacher. But if you're unsure, go to the college website. They'll tell you what they want. Asking, we talked about, please, before you invite them on Naviance, I know most of you had those conversations in the spring, please go back to those teachers and remind them and have the conversation again about your application process, what your deadlines are. They don't necessarily remember, and it would be nice to say a thank you again. So have those conversations and then go to Naviance and invite them, so that then they get an email saying you've requested them, and then they send through Naviance their letters of rec.
And what's really nice is once you put all your schools into your Naviance list, and then you click the teacher recommendation link on Naviance, it's gonna show you all the schools on the list that you've put and how many letters the school requires, how many they will allow. And so let's say you've asked 2 teachers to write letters for you, and then you go into the teacher recommendation portal on Naviance, and you see that, say, like Binghamton University only allows 1 letter of recommendation to be sent. So then you need to go in and you need to invite the 1 teacher that you want to send to Binghamton and click the box on them. And then for the next teacher, if you're inviting them for other schools where they do allow 2, you're not inviting, then you would invite both of those teachers to the other school. So, but it's really, really simple. Once you put the schools in your list and you click the link, it's going to show you. It comes up right away. I think you actually have to, pull, like there's a pull down menu with all the teachers in the school. You find the teacher that's writing for you. You click, Mrs. Whoever, Mr. Whoever, and then it'll show you all the requirements for each school.
Okay, what's important to note here is that only Schreiber faculty are on Naviance. So if you have an outside recommender, outside the building, a coach, a mentor of any kind, an employer, you have to invite them through Common Application, not Naviance, because they will not be on the drop-down. Does that make sense? Only Schreiber faculty are on Naviance. Any outside recommender gets recommended through the Common Application. We automatically write for you, so you don't have to click our names on the drop-down.
We don't use the Common Application recommendation portal at all. So it's basically, because we're using Naviance, that leaves it totally open and available for anything else. So again, that's what the way you use it for, if it's a Common Application school. If it's not a Common Application school, there's a good chance they don't need the letter of recommendation at all, but if they do, then you need to figure out how and what they need, and then how you get it there. There may be a separate portal for them. Sometimes we could even, put them in the old-fashioned mail if we have to, send stuff, but yeah.
Okay, SAT, ACT, one of the dates is incorrect.
I think she fixed it.
Fixed now.
All of those dates are correct. So if you plan on taking a fall ACT, SAT, please be mindful. We were having this conversation this morning about what will a college accept if you're applying early action or early decision. Probably they would take an October ACT or SAT, but we can't be sure. You can call the colleges to ask. If you are testing in October, you may not make the early deadline, and that's okay, because you can apply regular decision.
Right. The problem is that the ACT in October this year is October 28th, as I'm sure some of you know. I'm sure some of you sitting here are planning on taking that exam. So when you take that exam, if you're applying for a November 1 or a November 15th, and we're already October 28th, and you're just taking the test, it might be okay, and it might not be. It depends. We called a fairly competitive college this morning just to check. They said they don't, for November 15, they don't start actually reading applications until November 30th. So then the October 28th ACT would probably be fine, because they're not. But if they would have said, well, no, we start reading on November 15th, the day we get them, I don't know, maybe it's not fine. But if you indicate on the application that you're planning on sitting for that, then they might wait anyway. However, I know that in a lot of scenarios, you don't necessarily want to say on the application that you're sitting for a test date, because you don't necessarily know that you want to submit that test date. So the minute you tell them you're taking it, you put yourself in a position of sort of having to, figure that part out. So It's very specific, I understand, and the only reason we're bringing it up is because the date is so late this year in October, and it's so close to early action and early decision deadlines. So if you're an October 28th ACT taker, come and talk to us about that, and let's try to figure out where it may be an issue. Probably will be fine though, so I can just say that, I think, based on those conversations.
If you are test optional, do not self-report your scores, because anything that you send is subject to be evaluated. But if you are test optional and you get some crazy high score that you didn't expect, I don't think you can go back, right? Once you say you're test optional, they will not take a late, really high score. So you really need to be sure, am I or am I not test optional? And a good rule of thumb is to look on Naviance and see what the middle 50% of the Schreiber students in the past have submitted, and did they get accepted. If your number is higher, then you should send. If your number is lower, you should not. If you have any questions about that, please see us individually, and we can kind of go through where your score is and what would be competitive for you based on Naviance past history.
Often you have to make decisions from school to school as to whether to send your score. You may send to some and not to others. It depends upon the level of that school and what your score is, and in some scenarios it's a good score for a school. Maybe for other schools it might be a low score for that school, so you might be better off going test optional for that school. And this is something you have to kind of strategize about and think about and figure out what works best for you.
Hopefully all of you have started your college essays. If you have not, again, everything is deadline dependent. So if you're applying to a January 1st school, then you can start, you have plenty of time. If you're applying to an October 15th or November 1 or November 15th, then we're hoping that you're in the editing phase of your college essay. It's a 650 word maximum. They'll cut you off if you exceed that. So the idea is that you want to get your point across in a timely manner. You want to be really honest and genuine with what you're writing. You want it to be real. You want it to be in your voice and not an English teacher's or a parent's or anyone else that might change your voice. It really is important, because this is the opportunity for you to stand out, for you to be someone who's different from someone else. And again, to move the needle towards acceptance, you want to have an essay that really reads well and describes something important about you, something that you feel, again, your application would be incomplete if you didn't write about this. So keep that in mind when you're writing. And when you're getting it proofread, please, no typos. They'll see them. It's not a good look. But for content, you don't want too many hands on that essay. You want a few people that you trust to make sure it reads well. Comments?
No.
The Writing Center is a great resource. Please utilize that. It's open every day. There's an English teacher in there. You might feel more comfortable going to your English teacher or one of us. I love reading the essays. I know Mr. Lorge does. So we can kind of let you know if you're writing a lot about not much. We want you to really think about how to be concise but impactful at the same time. The topic should be kind of this big, but how you feel about the topic is really the essence of the essay. Okay?
And let me just spend a minute talking about the additional information, which is also in the writing section of the application. So you have the 650-word essay that you have to create, but you also have an optional 650-word blank piece of paper they give you to give you an opportunity to talk about anything else that's not reflected in the application. So one way to look at the additional information is to say, maybe after you write your essay, you look through your entire application and you ask yourself or your parents or someone who really knows you, if I was to read this whole application beginning to end, what would be totally missed about me? What is something that I feel, what's something I need to fill in order for someone to really understand all the different sides to who I am? And that could be something that you might put into the additional information. Also, if you're at the phase where you're still thinking about writing your essay, and I'm sure some of you in here still haven't started it yet, and you're freaking out a little bit, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta get this thing going. You may have a bunch of different ideas, and by the way, don't feel that way. You really don't, I mean, yes, it's getting later in the time, and it's definitely, what is it, September 19th today? You know, we're getting there, you know, but like if you haven't started any of the stuff we're talking about today, is stuff that if you had to, you could start today and get done. So there's nothing that you've missed. You haven't missed anything important. You can still get yourself exactly where you need to be by the time you need to be there. So I hope you all know that. So don't freak out about anything. We're all here to help you get to where you need to be. But what I was going to say about the essay is that when you're thinking about what to write the essay about, you may have a whole bunch of things that you could write about. So sometimes that doesn't work to make your best essay, to have 5 different ideas in one essay. But you could sort of divide it up. You could say, well, this is a great topic for my essay, I'm going to use that for my essay. But this is really important about me too. Maybe that's good for the additional information section. And so it's a freedom, I think, in a way, to think about having that kind of reservoir of space to put stuff, so that way you don't feel the pressure to have to pack everything into that one essay.
Okay, so here are the deadline programs that the colleges offer. And again, most colleges, probably every college, has a regular decision deadline. So not everyone is ready, and that's okay. And there's no harm in that. So really understand what your applications, what your college's deadlines are, and what is reasonable to submit for a quality application. I would hate for you guys to rush to get it in early, and then it's not clean and neat and typo-free. I'd rather you spend more time and go regular and have a really, really strong application. So please understand what the deadlines mean, but for our purposes, you can apply up until the deadline. I don't recommend that. I always want you guys to be early so you can make sure everything got submitted nicely. But for guidance, we want a 10-day window so that we can make sure that we get your guidance materials out on time. Okay, so if it's a November 1st deadline that you have, we would really like your processing form, which we'll talk about, 10 days prior to November 1st, okay? This is the form that you can get online or come to our office. I put it in my Google Classroom. Who saw it? Okay, thank you, you 3 people. Please go on Google Classroom. We're trying to...
I'm going to put it on my Google Classroom.
He's going to put it on his Google Classroom. Go on his, go on mine, I don't care. Just, here's the form. So we do need the 2-week turnaround, but your colleges, just make sure you adhere to those deadlines. You yourself, remember, you're applying at home separate from giving us the processing form.
And just keep in mind, just as a little asterisk, most of the time things that need to get sent just need to be postmarked by a certain date, but there are certain situations, especially like special programs, nursing programs, sometimes where they will say it has to be here by a certain date in order to be considered complete. That's not usually the case, but there was a few years ago, I think Michigan had something where it was like priority. If you wasn't there by that date, they could still do that one.
There are also, yes.
So that's just something, it's a slight distinction between a date that is due by for them to receive and a date that you need to be sending by or postmarking by. So it's just a little thing to just pay attention to when they give you a date. What does that date exactly mean for them? By and large, it generally means things need to be postmarked or sent by those dates, and as long as they're timestamped, generally, I find most situations you're fine, but it is just something to note.
Priority deadlines typically mean get it in by December 1st or whatever their priority deadline is in order to qualify for merit scholarships. So please keep that in mind, or special programs like nursing or engineering. So be aware, and again, the college websites will explain what priority deadlines are, but typically that's what they are. Rolling admissions, I just want to go back real quick. Rolling admissions, typically your bigger state schools are going to offer rolling admissions. There's no set deadline, but what it means is as soon as they get all the parts of the application, your guidance materials, your teacher recs, your test scores, 4 parts. Once they get all of that, they start evaluating and reading. So you could get a decision very early in the school year if you submit early and all the parts are in the admissions office. So rolling admissions, we typically say the earlier the better. When you're ready to get all those parts sent, send it for a rolling admissions school. Restrictive early action, not too common. It's kind of like an ED, but it's non-binding. So non-binding means you have until May 1st, which is like the national deposit deadline date, to decide where you're going to college, okay? Again, we did the priority, check the college websites. Do it. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can be accepted to the college. I mean, do I need to tell you guys that? Obviously, you know, when you go early decision, there are, you know, different ways that they can give you a decision. Obviously, the accept and deny are pretty simple to understand. The defer, though, is the one that a lot of kids get confused about. A defer basically means that they haven't accepted you or denied you. They are going to take your early decision application and put it in the regular application pool. Once they do that, you are now released from the early decision binding element. You're now a regular decision student. If they accept you in regular, you can still decide to not attend that school and go somewhere else.
And typically, that's where mid-year grades are really, really important.
Right.
So we are finding more and more students getting deferred because there are just so many applicants for not a lot of spots. So it's been a super competitive couple of years, but defer means they want to see you again. They want updated information. They don't necessarily need another teacher recommendation. They want grades. They want awards. They want something that they could advocate towards an acceptance. So the general rule of thumb is do well all year, but particularly first and second quarter, where we send all your mid-year grades to all the colleges that you applied to, by the way. So even if you've been accepted early, they will still see your mid-year grades. And every now and again, it's very rare, but they could question why you went down so significantly in a class. And that could happen at the end of the year also, once they see your final transcript. So yes, you can relax a little bit third and fourth quarter, but not so much that you might put yourself in jeopardy. So it's important to say that because we want you guys to work hard all year, and just because you've been accepted, you know, you're not guaranteed if they find, you know, some information that they're not happy with.
You know, the other reason why you also want to really take senior year important throughout the whole year is because if you go to college next year and you don't love where you are and you decide that you might want to transfer to another college, guess what they're going to ask for? They're going to ask for your transcript from high school, and then your grades from senior year are now going to be part of the full-on evaluation for that new school that you're looking to get into. So without knowing it sitting here, it could come into play down the road a little bit for you. That last thing is the most painful thing to happen to a student during admissions, I think, is to get put on a wait list. So a wait list basically means it's sort of you're hanging in the ether. You're sort of accepted if there's space, but they don't know if there's going to be space, and so it's you know, it's not always the best because you don't know what's going to happen. Most of the time, they will not let you know whether you've gotten off of a wait list until after that May 1st deposit. And then, so you already need to put your heart somewhere else by that point and commit to another school while still sitting on the wait list, maybe to your dream school. And so that's just the way it goes for a lot of kids. If that's the way it goes for you, it won't be a why me situation. I've seen that happen to hundreds and hundreds of kids because that's just, you know, that's a high likely scenario for a lot of kids because a lot of kids want to go to a school that's often academically at or close to where they are, and those are the schools that may end up waitlisting you. So just be careful there, but make sure that, and I think part of that conversation is don't do that. Don't have this one school in your mind that's like, if I don't get into this one school, my life is going to be over and I'm not going to have a good college experience, because it's really not true, guys. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of schools that all of you would be happy at regardless of which one you went to. And there's certainly by far a guarantee that you're going to necessarily be happy at the school that you think is going to make you happiest. It might be the school that's second on your list that could be the one that truly would make you happiest as a student. So just, keep an open mind. Don't get hooked onto one school to the point where like you're going to freak out if it doesn't work out exactly how you want there. Because, I've been, Ms. Hazen, Ms. Poma, we visited so many colleges, I'm telling you, they're all, if you guys have been out visiting, you see that most of them are amazing places that can offer you amazing things. So I just want to say that.
Okay, so we talked about the processing form and where to get it, and how to fill it out. Any questions on this? I just kind of want to get through the next few,
Yep.
so we have Q&A time. So again, mandatory part of the application process. Mrs. Poma.
Good morning, everyone. So if you haven't met me yet, my name is Ms. Poma. I'm the new post-secondary counselor here. I see a couple of familiar faces in the room that have already utilized some of the resources that I've been offering. So I just wanted to go through with you really quick what's kind of coming up on, my page. So I launched something called Beyond Schreiber Chats. So some of you may be sitting in here, some of you have utilized them already to talk about through the Common App, through your college essay. And others of you may be sitting in here and maybe you're like, college is not for me. I want to go into a career. I want to hear about that too. So come talk to me. We can work through college things or career things, anything you want to do. Post your time here at Schreiber. Something else that we're working on that some of you have also been a part of already is the Common App workshops. So there's one today, right? There's one today. And there's a couple other ones coming up as well. So if some of these things that we were talking about this morning maybe seem foreign to you, or like maybe I haven't gotten there yet and I need a little help or a little guidance, come see me. We can sit, we can open the Common App, we can work through those things together. A big one is matching your Naviance to your Common App, and we can definitely work on that. They're a walk-in model, and they're in the Vikings Code, which is formerly known as Room 112, or still known as Room 112 also. If you look at the QR code, if you scan it, it's just when they're being offered, but there's other things. I put them on the TV in the lobby. They're on the bulletin board for guidance, so there's many places to find them. Or come stop in and see me, I'll tell you when. And some things that are on the horizon is the on-site admissions days. So how many of you know what on-site admissions days are? Okay, a couple. It's when some of our local colleges come, they sit with you, they go over your application, and they actually give you an admissions decision on the spot. So it's a great way to get some confidence and really sit with an admissions rep from the school and really go over your application. Also, a lot of admissions reps, when they come here, they give money out. So if you're looking for some merit, it's a great way to get some scholarship money as well. So keep an eye out for those. There's going to be around November, December. The other thing is, again, if you're looking to go into more of a career type after high school, we're doing the Choose Your Future Fair again in early December. So take a look at that. So again, college application workshop. We kind of went over them. The other things that we are also, they've been happening, they're going to continue to happen, is college admissions reps actually come to Schreiber and they want to meet all of you. They want to meet the students that are interested in their school. They want you to ask questions. So this is the schedule for this week. So I see a bunch of familiar faces that actually came to a bunch of visits yesterday. We have some really great ones coming up. If you want to plan further than this week, if you log into your Naviance and go under colleges, college visits, you can see the list of every college rep that is coming here through November. So plan accordingly. It's a great way to demonstrate interest to a college. It's a great way to see if the college is a fit for you, and admissions reps are really a wealth of knowledge. So far, all of you have been asking awesome questions that have attended, so please continue to come.
Okay, and I just want to add to that, if you have a class that you feel you don't want to miss, we get that, we understand that. If there's a way for you to excuse yourself from a class for just a few minutes, so that you can meet the representative and fill out the postcard and they know that you were there and maybe ask a quick question. It would be helpful for you to kind of know that you've done everything you can to make contact with that college and personalize your applications in that way. So I know a lot of you are busy and you can't miss class and you have a quiz or a test, but there might be a way for you to get there for a few minutes just to have that face-to-face exchange, okay? So now let's open it up to Q&A, because there's probably a lot that you want to know. Hi. So we do send official transcripts. That's part of the guidance materials with your recommendation and the school profile. You have that, and everyone should have gotten a copy of their transcript with like a letter on it from Ms. Director. Everyone needs to look over their transcripts and sign them and return them to our clerical staff, because we need you to know what we're sending on your behalf. So if there are any mistakes, if there's anything on that transcript that is incorrect, make sure we get it back and we can fix it, and by the time you apply, we will have an updated transcript. The SRAR and the self-reported, senior courses in progress, that's what you self-report, but you don't have to give them an unofficial transcript. That's what the guidance office does.
This is what you do for your transcript. This is what that's for. So every college that you're applying to, I don't care how you're applying, has to come into guidance on this form, or your transcript, official transcript, will not get sent. You don't have to send the transcript to any colleges. You just have to fill out this form for the guidance department, and then you're telling the guidance department, with this form, send my transcript to these colleges,
Please.
along with the guidance council letter of recommendation. Okay, that's what this does. This tells us, send your letter and your transcript to these schools. So that's very, very important.
And make sure, if any of you are dropping a course or adding a course, make sure your common application is up to date and accurate before you apply. And remember that some early colleges, early decision, may ask for first quarter grades, so be prepared to come to guidance and ask us to send them. But also remember that mid-year grades, after midterms, we automatically send you mid-year grades. That's nothing that you have to do. We automatically do that.
I want to reiterate what Ms. Hazen said, because it's so important. If you put on your application that you're taking AP Psychology, and then you apply to the college, and then you drop AP Psychology, you've now put yourself in a position where you've told the college you're taking a class that you're not taking. So I think the point that Ms. Hazen is making, and I want to kind of just reiterate it, is make sure that when you send your application, these are the classes I'm staying in, and this is what I'm going to be doing. Because if you don't want to be calling a college or sending a letter to a college, it's like, hey, just letting you know that I shaved down the rigor of my program by an AP class because of whatever the reason. Not to say that if you had to do that, like, that happens. And if that happens, that's okay. Don't get me wrong. Like, if that happens, fine. You can do that. We've done that many times. Doesn't mean you're not going to get into the school. But I think we can all agree that if you had the choice, you'd rather not have to do that if possible. So I think that's a very important point.
More questions. Come on, guys. What are you unsure about that we've said? Yes. Can you still what? Yes. Absolutely. As long as you have a couple of schools on your Naviance account, request your teachers. And you can absolutely add, you can ask us to drop, you can change your mind for sure.
However, I think this is important though.
But you have to go back?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anytime, sorry, but yeah. Anytime you add a college to your Naviance Common App, anytime you decide to apply somewhere else, you must come back to guidance with this form.
And go back to your teacher.
And go back to your teachers. They don't know what you're doing at home. So anytime you make a change, you add a school, you want your teacher to send to that new school you decided to apply to, you come to guidance and you go back to your teachers. They don't know and we don't know. So you have to communicate to all of us until your entire application process is over.
So it's definitely most efficient to see if you can, if you do have sort of a final kind of list of colleges, it is most efficient to have them all on your Naviance when you request a teacher, because then the teacher will see that list of colleges and send it all. If you do with just a couple of colleges, you absolutely can do that, but then, you know, you're gonna need to go back to the teacher when you add 2 more colleges. You're gonna have to go, if they send it, then you're gonna have to go back to that teacher when you add 2 more colleges after that. It's create more work for yourself and for the teacher. So it is definitely, although I think there might be a one and done thing now where you may
Let's not
have to
chance
go,
it.
but I wouldn't chance, I'd always go back to the
Always go
hey,
back to
I
the teacher.
add a couple of schools to my Naviance account, you can just double check that that letter got sent out to those schools as well. I think with this new kind of technology that they just started, I think it goes out if you just add the school, but like Ms. Hazen is saying, I wouldn't necessarily trust that. I want to know that it has gone out. And by the way, you can always come down to us in guidance and check the status of things that are sent out. We see, oh yes, you know, Miss Ark did send your letter to that school. I see she sent it on this date. Oh yes, your transcript went out on this date. We can tell you that.
Yes. Okay, so the size of the class, that whole section, a lot of you might not know that we are a class of 364. Because we're a 4.5 weighted school, and that's not an option in the drop-down, we say just put 4. We go by semesters, we do not rank, and your GPA is on your transcripts that you should have received a couple of weeks ago. So that section needs to get weighted GPA, yes. Thank you, yes. Any other questions about that portion of the common application?
But these are the kinds of things you can also go to when Mrs. Palmer has her,
Yeah, I was gonna say, thank you, Mr. Lord. These are also the things that you can come see me about in our Common App workshop, so we can sit together, go through the application, and make sure that you're filling those sections out that you may have questions about correctly. Do you have another question?
No conversions necessary. Weighted.
Schreiber only offers a weighted GPA, that's it.
If you didn't hear Mr. Lord, Schreiber only offers a weighted GPA.
I haven't received my transcript.
Okay, so just come down and see me and I'll get it. If you haven't received the transcript, just come down to your guidance counselor and you can grab it.
Or one of the secretaries would be happy to print it out for you. Yes. Yes.
Now is that time. Like if you want to start making schedule adjustments, you want to do something, now is the time because we haven't sent anything out yet to anybody. Basically, you want to make sure your transcript is done by the time you give us this. This is until you give us this, your transcript isn't going anywhere. So once you give us this, then you're telling us to send your transcript, so you want to make sure all those changes are done by then. Anyway, we're around, guys. We're here to help you.
Bye, everybody.
Come down anytime first.
We hope this was helpful.